Hello, we're back for another episode of Woke Nation. Um, this is, my episodes lately have been kind of weeks apart, so I hope you'll forgive me for that. Things have just been so hectic with the birth of our daughter, and she's finally home from the hospital. And anyone who has kids knows the madness that ensues from that. And you ought to forgive the noise in the background. My son's here, and he's watching his favorite movie, Monster House, which is on Netflix about some kind of haunted house or something. So good times. We're all hunkered down and hiding from the modern world, as I'm sure most of you are at this time, from the dreaded coronavirus, which seems to be taking over the world, reducing world economies, powerful economies, to absolute rubble. You saw what happened in China, where I think for months their factories, their retail, absolutely everything was just completely shut down. The place was frozen. And then if you look over to Europe, where the virus is now spread, you have Italy, where I think some 60 million people can't even go outside. The Catholic Church is not celebrating public mass. Pope Francis, the heretic, is streaming his services, as any good pastor would do, obviously. But uh, that says a lot. We're a very devoutly Catholic country will not even celebrate public mass anymore. To me, that says quite a bit. Um, Ireland, I mean, all over Europe now, this thing is just spreading. Spain is in lockdown. Um, Iran, which has terrible health care, but they're also devastated by this thing. I made a video a couple weeks ago that was kind of a joke where I was down in the basement pretending like I had the virus and um, stuff like that. I think having some humorous outlook on this is important, mostly because it's really hard to separate the hysteria from the actual reality of the virus. And what I mean by that is, if you actually look at the virus itself, it's not all that deadly a virus. The only people that are really in danger of dying from this thing are people that live in nursing homes. I think it's from the age of 60 and up. Mostly senior citizens and the elderly are actually being affected health wise by this thing. Um, if you're healthy and you don't have complications from some other previous disease, if you don't have AIDS or an autoimmune deficiency, something like that, then you could have this thing, not even know you have it, and your immune system would kill it off. That seems to be what's happening with a lot of the healthy people out there. The only downside to that is if you're healthy and you just think it's like a normal cold or something of the kind, then you can spread it without even knowing you have it. And I think that's what's largely responsible for a lot of the cases that we'll find in the ensuing weeks. It's all right, buddy. That as this thing progresses, most cases are going to be people that didn't know they had it, and they passed it along to the next guy, and the next guy actually went into a doctor and found out he had it. I think that's what's going to be the case largely in the ensuing weeks. Now, they're talking about shutting the church that we go to. We're kind of divided between two churches right now: a Baptist church down the road, and then there's an Anglican church, a Reformed Anglican church in Harrisburg that we've been going to, and both of them are shut down completely. The Anglican church, I just met with the priest there for breakfast this morning. We had a good time talking about things, but he said that I think up to 5 to 8 weeks or something like that, things are going to be closed straight through Easter services, Holy Week and the like. So that's pretty sad and dramatic. We'll see how people handle that, especially Catholics in this area too. One of the things that separates the Catholic Church from a lot of Protestants and evangelical denominations is that the Catholic Church is always open for people to go into. That's one of the things I do like about the Catholic Church is it's always the center of the community. And so the doors are always open for the parishioners to go in and pray and things of the like, and to go to confession and take Mass throughout the week. Now, I don't agree with Mass, but the idea is the same. And I think that's something, just as a a side note that's missing in a lot of Protestant and evangelical churches is that the church is only open really on Sundays, and beyond that, you can't go in and pray whenever you want to. It's you can't. There isn't the Eucharist being celebrated throughout the week. Stuff of those nature is just kind of closed off in strictly a Sabbath day function. But anyway, the Catholic Church, their doors are shut, and that to me is something that's shocking. Out of it, it bodes it's a worse omen for me that is closed off than retail or anything like that. Just stay over there, buddy. I'll be over in just a minute. All right. So it means more to me that the Catholic Church is shut down because that's the beating heart of the community, or it should be anyway. Especially in times past, the church was the heart of the community. No, as things have progressed in our secular country, that's something that's changed quite a bit as the government fills the void that the church has left. Um, there's a lot of reasons for that I'm not going to go into, but suffice it to say that, especially in Catholic communities in the inner cities in New York City and places like that, and a lot of Irish and Italian neighborhoods, Polish neighborhoods, and the like, it's a shock to see the Catholic Church close down like that, just be under total lockdown. So a lot of what's going on is just totally unprecedented. The NBA, the NFL, the sports world, the entertainment world, all these places are just shutting down. Music festivals like Bonnaroo. I'm not so sure about Bonnaroo, but a lot of the others. There's forget the name of it, down in Miami, and it's like dubstep music and everything. That's massive festival down there that's postponed till late summer or something like that. A lot of festivals are just going that way. And the sports world is shutting down. Hollywood got its first taste of kind of reality when Tom Hanks and his wife were confirmed as testing positive for the coronavirus, and they're out in Australia now in quarantine. And quarantine can last for a couple weeks, and to me, that's the scariest part of all of this. Is not the virus itself. The virus is minuscule. As I said before, I mean, it's just a flu, basically. And if you're healthy and young, you're going to fight this thing off. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to leave any lasting effects on you, as far as we know. I just don't understand the widespread hysteria and panic that is being brought about, largely propelled by the media. I blame the media for a lot of this, and politicians that are using it for political gain. The media and politicians are using this thing for using fear as a weapon to win, score political points, and use this thing, the virus, as a cudgel to bludgeon their opponents out of the race. The Democrats right now are milking this thing for all it is worth to blame President Trump for not operating fast enough, not taking action quick enough. When this whole thing was just getting started in January, President Trump, I think, banned travel or some he took immediate action towards China. And what did they do? What did the Democrats and CNN and the mainstream media do? They called him a xenophobe. They called him a racist for doing things like that. And now here, they're blaming him for not taking action quick enough. So he's darned if he does, darned if he doesn't. I mean, he cannot win. He's in a catch-22, rock in a hard place. And this is just proof positive, further proof that it's not Trump's, Trump, what he does or what he doesn't do that's the problem here. It's that they just hate the guy so much. He could cure cancer, and if he cured cancer, they would hate him for not curing AIDS first, or vice versa. It doesn't matter. No matter what he does, it's not good enough, and they're going to use it as a weapon against him. So it really shows the rottenness, the wickedness, the evilness, the greed, the corruption, and the cynical nature of our politics today, that they would use even this, something that is grinding economies, global economies, to a halt, that is going to have a massive impact on a worldwide scale. We don't even know the net effect yet. We'll have to find out, but they don't care about that. In fact, the worse it is, the more they can point the finger at Trump. It seems to be the modus operandi of these people. And that's a sick, sick world that we're living in when that's the norm. And it seems to be the norm. Um, they're not unifying. CNN and MSNBC and these liberal run propaganda mouthpieces are not encouraging people to unify behind the president. As John Wayne said, when the president, I think it was Kennedy, was elected, he said, well, I didn't vote for him, but he's my president and I hope he does well, so I'm going to support him. That attitude is gone. The Democratic population in this country, largely the progressive liberals in the government, like Ilhan Omar, AOC, um, Chuck Schumer, these other Adam Schiff, these monsters in our government, don't care about unification. They're not. They're, this is just a weapon that they can use to beat Trump in 2020. And to be honest, the weapon was handed. This is their golden ticket to possibly beating Trump. To be perfectly blunt, the guy, as long as the economy is good, he's basically undefeated. You can't defeat him, especially with who they have running against him now. Joe Biden can't remember his own name. Bernie Sanders was drunk. His idea of a honeymoon was getting drunk and going to Russia during the Cold War with his wife, and drunken. There's a video of him drunkenly singing communist songs with his wife. Without a shirt on, he's an open socialist. So the guy's anti-American to the core. And then you have Joe Biden, who is just, despite what how the media has tried to push off quid pro quo and all that kind of stuff onto Trump, we have Joe Biden on tape bragging about quid pro quo. Uh, Sean Hannity calls him quid pro quo Joe, and it's an apt nickname. The guy bragged about a quid pro quo, and he's been known as the point man going into different countries and setting up deals with officials in the Ukraine and other places like that so his family can benefit monetarily from these deals. He's the point man. But without going too far into that, so the guy's unimaginably corrupt. These politicians are unimaginably corrupt, and they're just using this virus as a weapon to beat Trump in 2020. You don't get more cynical than that. And they're using the media as their mouthpiece, and the media is playing this thing up for all it's worth. They're using fear as a way to scare people into voting a certain way. You don't get more cynical than that, as I said. You don't get more sick than that. You don't get more anti-American than that, or non-Christian. Nowhere in the Bible is fear used as an incentive for somebody to do something. At least not in a cynical, mean-spirited way like this is. If there's an ill end in your future, and somebody, Lucas, if somebody warns you about something that is potentially hazardous to your health or your soul later on down the road, that's different than using fear to get to gain power or manipulation or score points over a political rival. Those are two different scenarios. Because some people might point to hell as oh, what about hell? The Bible uses hell to scare people into repenting. Well, that's not true. Hell is there, regardless. And would it not be the loving thing to do to warn people about it, at least to warn you? But that's different than using something for your own gain. And Christians that use hell for their own gain should be condemned as much as Democrats or politicians that use coronavirus for their own gain. Okay? It goes hand in hand. You can't condemn the one and allow the other. But that's the thing that I want to kind of warn against in all of this mass hysteria. You can't buy toilet paper, you can't buy paper towels, you can't buy hand sanitizer. People are snatching up things that they don't even need. I was reading something on Facebook where a family member is complaining about baby formula that is just vanishing. Why? Why would that vanish at a time like this? Why are people buying? It's because of the irrationality of this whole thing, where people just see somebody, they'll be going down the aisle and they'll see somebody buy 10 of something, and it'll pop into their head, oh, if I don't buy 10 of those things, then it'll never be available again. There's going to be shortages everywhere. Well, that's not true. There's no evidence to that that'll be the case at all. But people irrationally doing these things will create shortages, and buying enough formula when you don't need it actually creates a shortage for somebody's child who actually does need it, like us. So if you don't need formula, you idiot, don't buy it. And then if you see somebody that has a baby that's stockpiling formula months beyond the fact that they would need it, say something to the moron. Because again, that's going to create problems for somebody whose baby can only eat formula, like us. Our child is lactose intolerant, is been having enormous problems with gas and bloating. It's 2 months old, and because she cannot eat dairy. So breast milk and normal formula, she just can't deal with. So we have to have a specific type of formula. And then when these fools go and just buy stuff blindly based on an irrational fear, you're screwing over the next person that genuinely needs something. So, take a moment to actually think through and reflect and pray, and just count to 10 before you walk into the grocery store. Do not let fear drive your purchasing while you're in there. There's no evidence that there's going to be widespread shortages in food or anything of the like. If you think that, buy some canned goods. But toilet paper, you can wipe your butt with anything. I'm sorry to say it, but there are leaves outside. You don't need to buy up all the toilet paper that's on the shelf. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous. Paper towels, same thing. It's just this panic, and it's cynically driven by the media. The media wants to see people just going haywire. Uh, it's also a way for them to garner viewership at a time when the cable news media is just, their viewership is dwindling and dwindling and dwindling, like the people that actually take Joe Biden seriously. Uh, CNN largely has some of the lowest viewership on TV. Nickelodeon reruns have more viewers than Anderson Cooper 360 or whatever his show is. The same goes for Don Lemon or some of the others. People just are not watching them. Now, Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson have very high-rated shows, but those high-rated shows, relatively speaking, still have lower viewership than normally a show of its kind would have. So these, but and so cynically, they're playing off of this fear and hysteria to try to get people to watch them. That's sick. That's demented. Lying to people and scaring them so that you can monetarily gain from it is a demented thing to do, and it's totally anti-Christian. Um, so I don't know. I think that this virus, and this is just my opinion for what it's worth, is not the enemy. The enemy is the fear, this hysterical fear that I think is being used as a weapon by powerful people to get what they want. If you look back at the swine flu, when that came through, more people contracted the swine flu in the first year of it being in the United States than will ever be exposed to the coronavirus. I mean, and it was fast. They don't talk about that, but it spread pretty quickly through the countries that it came through. The swine flu did, and you didn't have this kind of hysteria. More people died from this. More people die from the flu, the regular flu, on a yearly basis than will die from this coronavirus. Um, Over several countries, we have 20 to 30,000 people that die every year from just the regular flu, not to mention pneumonia and other diseases, heart disease, cirrhosis, liver disease, renal failure, cancer, HIV, all these other killers out there kill. Drunk driving, so many other things kill far more people than this coronavirus ever will. And global economies do not grind to a halt. That's why I'm very skeptical about the reaction that is being taken towards this thing when you look at the thing itself. The two do not match up. There's something else going on here. You can call that a conspiracy theory. You can call it, nutso, wacko, whatever you want. But just look at the coronavirus coronavirus itself. It's just a flu. And then look at the hysterical reaction on a global scale. The reaction does not fit the thing itself. It is a way dramatic, massive overreaction to something that does not kill most of the people that it will come in contact with. Most healthy people can get this thing, not know they have it, and their immune system will fight it off on their own without the benefit of an antidote, without benefit of antibiotics or what have you. Just in the same way, if you stay home, take your vitamin C, take some Tylenol and whatever, you will get over the flu over after 24 hours or whatever. Most of the time 24 hours and you're good after the flu. May not be as long or as short with the coronavirus, but you will fight it off. It does not warrant this kind of massive hysteria of buying everything on the stinking shelf, being afraid to trade with other countries. It just, I mean, this is just total madness to me. But we're in it now. You know, there's no. What am I supposed to say at this point? I have a small show here with 50 some subscribers. Nobody's listening to me. This thing is being propelled forward whether I like it or not. So now we're in it. The thing is going to spread, and as it spreads, it doesn't matter whether I say it's dangerous or not. The government says it is, and so they're going to be shutting down churches, schools, this, that, any kind of organized group of people are going to be shut down, left and right. And what kind of massive impact, or lasting, I should say, impact that's going to have on the economy, who knows? At this point, we have no idea. That's our jobs, and saying that, well, we're going to give tax cuts and this kind of and this and that and the third. How about you just don't shut down the economy? How about you just don't do that? How about people practice basic hygiene? How about you don't buy all the freaking sanitizer off of the shelf? Let everybody get a little sanitizer. Take showers. Spray yourself with disinfectant, or the Lysol spray, whatever basic stuff you have to do. Cover your mouth when you cough. Don't wipe your nose and then smear it all over a handrail in the metro or whatever. How about you just do that, and this thing will pass over? And those who get it and need medical treatment, or people in nursing homes, guard them, protect them. But the rest of us, let us go about our daily life and actually hold each other accountable as far as how we practice hygiene and consideration for those around us. How about we just do that instead of grinding the world to a halt? I mean, imagine if this was actually a deadly virus, a really deadly virus. Some people say, oh, it is a deadly virus. Some people have died. Of course, that's like saying the flu is a deadly virus. It's broadly speaking not. Okay, this is not broadly speaking a deadly virus. It's a destructive virus because we've chosen to allow it to be destructive by allowing fear to cloud our judgment and our thinking rather than actual basic reason, faith in God, and just basic hygiene, for goodness sakes. So the whole thing is way overblown, but it doesn't matter now that it is, because that's how they've chosen to react to this thing, and we're in it now, and we're just going to have to ride this beast to the end. Churches are going to be closed 5 to 8 weeks. Sports, all that kind of stuff, the entertainment industry, everything that keeps society normal is going to go out the window. And this is going to have a massive effect on the psyche of the country, the morale of the country. And that's good. That's going to be used and manipulated and honed and given a healthy dose of fear every once in a while from the media, all the way up until the election. You'll see. This won't go away until the election's over. And when it is, then we'll see what happens. We'll see who wins then, and then whose healthcare system will be used as an excuse for implementation because of this. If Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden wins, then that's all the excuse they need. The coronavirus is just another excuse for a socialistic healthcare system, ruining and destroying all privatized healthcare, doctors having no real interaction with their patients anymore, but just a governmental, expressionless, bland, body that makes healthcare decisions for you based on what they think you need. That's where it's headed, and they're going to use this as an excuse for it. Mark my words. Um, but anyway, I would just encourage everyone to, number one, pray. The most important thing here is that we never forget that in the midst of all this, God is absolutely sovereign. He is. This is not taking God by surprise. It took the rest of us by surprise, and we're behaving irrationally in response. But God does not behave irrationally. Um, God does not cynically use fear, nor is he afraid. He is absolutely sovereign over everything that happens because he's decreed that everything that happens will come about as it does. That does not excuse through free will, our choices. And I'm not going to go down that bunny trail right now, but suffice it to say that God is sovereign in all of this, and we have to keep that in our forefronts of our minds through everything, every decision we make, the way we react to this thing, is that we have a God above us who is good and just and righteous and holy, and we have forgotten him largely as a country, and we need to go back and remember God, remember who it was that blessed this nation in the very beginning, in its very founding, that this nation was founded on biblical principles and the idea that is the just creator of the world, and we are his subjects as creatures. That's largely been forgotten, and evolution plays a big part in that. But if we could only return and just remember God, then a lot of the hysteria could be cranked back several notches, and we might be saved some future grief economically, in our psyche, in our morale, spiritually, a whole host of different ways if we just react instead of with fear, but rather in prayer and faith and helping one another, instead of selfishly screwing over your neighbor by buying everything on the shelf because your survival is the only thing that matters. Let me remind you that the nation is built up of communities, not individuals that live on islands. And if your lone survival is the only thing that comes into your mind, then that kind of thinking is what disintegrates the community, and the community spreads out to the county, the town, the city, and the nation as a whole. It will fracture and come apart if everyone's thinking selfishly and hysterically, as we've seen so far at our stores. So keep all that in mind. And remember, just pray, 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 pray. Stay in touch with your pastor, your priest, your vicar, whoever. Pray without ceasing, excuse me. And a lot of pastors now are streaming their services online, as the leader of the Anglican Church where we've been going as, and I think the Baptist Church that we kind of been bouncing around with will do, and I'm sure many others too. And that's very necessary for all of us. Me, I will say especially. So hang in there. Do not let fear be the sole motivator of your decision making throughout this crisis. Okay. All right. Well, that's all for now. Hopefully, you could hear me over Monster House over there. Good night, or good afternoon, and God be with you.